I knew Rachel hated me the moment she called me Evelyn with that soft, syrupy voice reserved for dogs that just peed on the carpet. I was 2 weeks into the role. Data analyst, mid-tier salary, no real clout, and already she'd turned her little glass-walled corner of the office into a pressure cooker with my name on the timer. "We need someone with energy," she'd said in front of the team, looking right at me. "People like that, they just don't scale." I'd been scaling spreadsheets till my eyes bled. I'd rebuilt their forecasting model over a single weekend and shaved 6% off their Q2 overhead. Not that it mattered. Rachel had a way of walking past my desk like I was furniture. But when I so much as forgot a semicolon in a report, she'd hover behind me with that fake little laugh and go, "Oh, Evelyn, even you can't be this slow." Thing is, I wasn't slow. I was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. 45, not exactly corporate Barbie. Divorced, wore the same pair of black slacks 4 days a week, and I wasn't about to flirt with the CMO just to get a meeting invite. Rachel, on the other hand, could weaponize a compliment, then slit your self-esteem with it before lunch. Executives loved her, called her a rising star, real polish. One called her the Velvet Axe, and I think he meant it as a compliment, and I took it, day after day. Because bills don't pay themselves and middle-aged women don't get severance packages, they get phased out. I watched younger hires with fresher nails get promoted while I trained them. I ran numbers that saved departments and then watched Rachel present them like she'd dreamed them up in the shower. One time, I walked in while she was presenting my slide deck. Names scrubbed clean, of course, and she looked me dead in the eye and said, "People like Evelyn keep the lights on, but innovation, that comes from talent." It's funny how someone can say, "People like you," a dozen ways and still make it sound fresh every time. She said it when I asked about leading a cross-functional project. She said it when I requested software training. She said it when I asked, quietly, timidly, why my raise hadn't been processed. "People like you need to focus on gratitude," she smiled, pouring herself sparkling water from the company fridge. "You're not exactly indispensable. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud in those glossy glass offices. It's the invisible ones keeping the whole place from falling into chaos. The quiet ones. The ones who cover for their manager's bad data. Stay late fixing dashboards someone else broke. Nod through meetings while their insides scream. I wasn't indispensable, but without me they'd be flying blind. And look, if you're listening to this and nodding, do me a favor. Seriously. Tap the subscribe button and throw us a like. 97% of people listen and scroll on, but it really helps the team keep doing this. Trust me, we notice every bit of support. And this story, you'll want to see how it ends. Because it doesn't stay like this. Not for long. Everything started to shift when Emma arrived. Quiet, kind, didn't try to suck up to Rachel. And, more importantly, she saw everything. ChatGPT skazal. Emma showed up on a rainy Monday morning, hair pulled back in a loose braid, eyes sharp behind thin tortoiseshell glasses. No grand entrance, no awkward first-day stumbles. Just a quiet calm, like she already knew the room. HR introduced her as a transfer from corporate, which in our world meant one of two things. Either a burnout from the big leagues or a golden goose being shuffled into place. She sat 2 rows behind me that first day, laptop open before the intro meeting even started, already typing notes while the rest of us blinked through the fluorescent fog of a 9 a.m. sync. Rachel didn't seem fazed by her at first. She gave her the usual warm glaze she reserved for new hires. "So excited to have you, Emma." "Really?" With a smile that meant, "Stay out of my lane." But something in Emma's expression told me she'd seen that kind of smile before. She just nodded, said thank you, and kept typing. Took 3 days before I noticed she was watching. Not in a creepy way, more like she was taking inventory. Every time Rachel redirected my work mid-sentence or cut me off in a meeting, Emma's eyes tracked it. She didn't flinch, didn't frown, just noted it. She'd sit at her desk quietly for hours, then suddenly turn and ask me, "Why did that report get rerouted to finance before it cleared through you?" Or, "Is it normal for Rachel to reassign work without logging it in Jira?" I didn't know how to answer her, so I didn't. Too many years of learning when to keep my head down. Office politics weren't just a game, they were a minefield, and people like me didn't get second chances if we stepped wrong. Then came the Thursday meeting. We were in the big glass conference room where everyone suddenly talks like they've swallowed a TED Talk. Rachel was walking us through her newest initiative, a dynamic reporting dashboard to track real-time conversions. It was my project. I'd spent 3 weekends building that monstrosity, mapping APIs like a caffeinated raccoon with a whiteboard fetish. I knew every damn button. Rachel, meanwhile, barely knew how to refresh a tab. And right as she wrapped up her monologue, Emma leaned forward, casual as a whisper. "That predictive modeling feature Evelyn designed, the one with the conditional triggers, is genius," she said, voice smooth. Not a challenge, but a fact. The room stilled for a beat. Rachel blinked. "Oh, well, yes, the team did a great job," she said, and moved on faster than a bad date. It was subtle. No one called attention to it. No one clapped. But I felt it, like someone had finally seen me through the fog. Emma looked at me as if to say, "I know." That afternoon, she stopped by my desk with a printout of the dashboard mock-ups. "I had a few questions. If you're okay walking me through it?" she asked. I nodded, hesitant. I'd had people ask before. They all vanished by week 2. But Emma sat down, pen ready. She listened, really listened. She asked questions about logic trees, not aesthetics. She caught a logic error I hadn't even seen yet. Then she smiled, not in a patronizing way, but like we were in on something. I didn't know what to make of her. I didn't trust it, not yet. Hope was a dangerous thing in a place like this. It made you sloppy. But for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel invisible. Still, I kept my guard up. Because no one's that kind. Not without an angle. It was the second week when Emma started bringing 2 lunches. No announcement, no fuss. Just slid a Tupperware onto my desk one afternoon and said, "Didn't want the second one to go to waste." It was homemade pasta. Nothing fancy. Just warm, thoughtful, and not loaded with the silent pity that usually came from people trying to connect in an office like ours. I told her I wasn't hungry. She shrugged. "Okay, I'll leave it anyway." I ate the whole thing an hour later at my desk while triple-checking regression models. It was damn good, too. She kept showing up like that, quietly helping, never overstepping, never drawing attention. She'd swing by with a coffee, ask if I needed help building test logic, or offer to handle some client-side walkthroughs if Rachel dumped too much on me. I tried to wave her off at first, didn't want to be anyone's charity project, but she always looked me straight in the eye and said, "I wouldn't offer if I didn't mean it." Rachel noticed. Of course she did. She started to get that edge in her voice again. Tight praise, clipped feedback, talking over Emma in meetings with the same smooth venom she used on me. But with Emma, it wasn't so blatant. There was hesitation, like Rachel was trying to figure out exactly how dangerous she was. I saw it in the way she paused before speaking to her, the way she added sweetie to her critiques like it was seasoning. Emma never flinched, never reacted, just smiled slightly and let it roll off like she'd seen better monsters before. The turning point came in the hallway, near the loading dock where no one ever went unless they were crying or hiding from finance. Emma had just helped me reroute a data pipeline that Rachel had accidentally overwritten, and I was still pissed off about it. Months of logic work flushed because someone couldn't be bothered to use version control. I must have let something slip in my face because Emma stopped walking and said, "You know she's afraid of being exposed, right?" I looked at her, caught off guard. "Exposed for what?" Emma tilted her head slightly, studying me. "She's not as careful as she thinks. People like Rachel, they depend on silence. Yours, everyone's. Once that cracks, they start to scramble." I wanted to argue, say that I'd tried, that I'd gone to HR twice, that I'd submitted reports, logged everything, documented the backdated approvals and the Friday night Slack messages demanding midnight turnarounds. Nothing happened. HR smiled, told me to document concerns, and filed it into the abyss. Rachel knew how to play the system. She smiled the right smiles, dated the VP of strategy for a while, sat on a DI panel once and talked about lifting up the voices of women in data. But Emma just nodded, as if she already knew all that, like she was waiting for me to remember that it wasn't my fault it hadn't worked. That was the first time I really talked. Talked. I pulled up old files from a backup drive, project audits she'd falsified, the way she'd signed off on budget reallocations she later blamed on me. I even showed her the last HR ticket, a 6-paragraph complaint I'd written at 2 a.m. after a breakdown in my kitchen. Never even got a response. Emma didn't interrupt. She just read. Quiet, focused. You kept all this? She asked, not judging, just surprised. Not because I thought it'd matter, I said. Just couldn't delete it. She nodded again. It matters. More than you think. I didn't ask what she meant by that. I didn't want to hope. But something in the air had shifted. And for once, it wasn't just the stale recycled vent air and Rachel's Chanel knockoff perfume. It was the feeling of someone quietly loading the first stone. Emma never demanded anything. She just asked questions the way a scalpel cuts, not loud, not flashy, just precise. She started checking old file directories, poking into outdated repositories, cross-referencing project notes with timestamped approvals. No announcement, no smoking gun speech, just that same calm voice. Do you remember who authorized this transfer? Or was this version logged before or after the budget approval? I told myself she was just curious, that maybe she was bored. But I knew better. You don't comb through 6 months of pipeline logs and QA tickets unless you're either writing a legal memo or building a case. And Emma didn't seem like the type to waste time. Rachel, meanwhile, was circling like a shark that smelled something foul in the water but couldn't place it. Her tone got colder. Feedback became knife-thin. Then came the bombshell. A departmental reorg, announced via Slack message like it was good news. Excited to share we're streamlining workflows to better align with strategic goals, she typed, tagging the team. Evelyn will be shifting to legacy data maintenance. So grateful for her continued support. Legacy data maintenance. Translation, the spreadsheet graveyard. No access to live campaigns, no meetings with product or marketing. Just old files, dusty audits, and running integrity checks on obsolete data. A role with no ladder, no influence, no path forward. I sat in that meeting room trying not to show it on my face. I'd been here before. Reorgs that were really demotions dressed up with synergy buzzwords and smiley face emojis. And Rachel had perfected the performance. She tilted her head, touched my shoulder, and said, I know it's not glamorous, but people like you are just so dependable. You keep everything humming. I felt heat crawl up my throat, but I didn't speak. What was there to say? HR wouldn't intervene. Execs wouldn't care. And if I pushed back, she'd say I was being difficult. Emotional. Unstable. I could see the setup already forming in her eyes. But then Emma raised her hand. If Evelyn's moving to Legacy, I'd like to be reassigned with her, she said plainly. Rachel blinked. Excuse me? Emma smiled, slow and unbothered. I've learned more shadowing Evelyn in the last 3 weeks than I did in my entire last quarter. If the goal is better workflows, I want to study what works. She's who I want to learn from. For a second, I thought Rachel might actually spit out her sparkling water. But she caught herself, forced a chuckle, and said, well, if that's what you feel would be most valuable. I didn't say anything until later, when we were back at our desks. I leaned over, voice low. You don't have to do this. Emma didn't look up. I know. Seriously, Emma, this role's a dead end. You're tying yourself to a sinking ship. She looked at me then, really looked. You ever see how someone tries to kill something they don't understand? That's what she's doing. Hoping you disappear into a quiet corner. I'm just making sure you're not alone in it. I didn't know what to say. Empowered wasn't the right word. Grateful wasn't big enough. I felt disoriented, like the ground under me was still shifting and I couldn't tell which way was up. I'd been surviving for so long that I didn't know what it meant for someone to actually stand with me. She started coming in early, not to impress anyone, but to work. We rebuilt broken data streams, cleaned up Rachel's half-baked migrations, quietly fixed entire campaign dashboards while Rachel posed in all-hands meetings and smiled for leadership. Emma asked me what I thought should be done, not what Rachel wanted done. And for the first time in years, I stopped defaulting to damage control and started thinking in blueprints again. I still didn't get why she cared this much. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't about me anymore. Maybe she was digging roots. Or maybe she was planting charges. The office party was held in one of those trendy rooftop venues with fake ivy walls and overpriced cocktails that tasted like air freshener. They gave us name tags, but no one used them. Everyone already knew where they stood. The VPs huddled near the fire pits with their wives and the last 5 months interns. Marketing buzzed around the bar like they were still in college. I stayed near the cheese table, nursing a club soda and watching the skyline because it was safer than watching people. Emma arrived late, as always, but every head turned like it was choreographed. She wore a navy pantsuit. Sharp, clean, but not flashy. And her hair was up in a twist that made her look like she belonged in a courtroom instead of the circus. She nodded to a few people but didn't make a show of it. Just drifted over near me, grabbed a glass of water and asked, "How's the cheese?" "Still just cubes," I muttered. She smiled, and for a moment, it felt like we were just two co-workers killing time before the escape window opened. But then Rachel found her stage. She'd had 3 glasses of red by then, enough to make her bold but not slurring. She perched on the arm of a chair next to the VP of Strategic Growth, laughing just a little too loud. I saw her scan the room, clock Emma standing near me, and lock in like a heat-seeking missile. And then she did what Rachel always did, weaponized the moment. "I mean, let's be honest," she said loudly, clinking her glass against the VP's. "Not everyone is built for fast-paced innovation. Some people just don't belong in that world." She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. The room got just quiet enough for it to land, and then a ripple of tight, polite laughter passed through the air like static. A couple people chuckled nervously. One guy from UX turned toward the bar like he suddenly remembered he needed another IPA. No one looked at me directly, except Emma. She didn't flinch, didn't force a smile, just stepped forward, slid her arm gently around mine. Not in a romantic way, but in that way someone does when they've decided they're done watching you get hit and not doing anything about it. She looked at Rachel, eyes steady, then turned to me and said, softly but clearly, "Let's go." It was so calm, so unbothered. Not a protest, not a defense, just choice. She gave me the choice, and I took it. I followed her through the crowd, past the VPs and the fake smiles and the music that was starting to swell again. I didn't even realize I still had my drink in my hand until I dumped it into a potted plant by the elevator. We stepped outside into the cold. It was one of those late fall nights where the air smells like firewood and endings. Emma didn't say anything at first, just stood beside me, watching traffic blur past below. Finally, she said, "You've done enough." I turned to her, confused. "What do you mean?" She looked straight ahead. "Tomorrow she'll know." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even angry, just a fact. A turning of the page. I didn't ask what was coming. Didn't need to. Something in her voice told me the gears were already in motion. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt seen. The next morning felt off before I even made it to my desk. The office was quieter than usual. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind of stillness that buzzes under your skin, like the air right before a storm. Slack was silent, the usual Monday morning barrage of fake cheer and recycled memes replaced by unreadable status bubbles and passive-aggressive calendar updates. Even Rachel's usual 8:55 a.m. power walk into the bullpen was conspicuously absent. She stormed in around 9:40, sunglasses still on despite the cloudy weather, phone clutched to her ear like she was choking the signal out of it. She didn't acknowledge anyone, not even her usual smirk at my desk, which she passed like it didn't exist. Her heels hit the floor like warning shots. I watched her cut across the room and vanish into her glass fishbowl of an office without a word. 10 minutes later, HR walked in. Not our usual HR rep, the one who wore cardigans with cat pins and always asked if you had a moment to chat. This was someone I'd never seen before. Sleek suit, clipboard, no smile. She walked right into Rachel's office without knocking. Through the glass, I saw it play out like a silent movie. Rachel stood up, gestured wildly, clearly asking what the hell was going on. The HR woman didn't flinch. She simply handed her a folder. Rachel flipped through it fast, her expression shifting from annoyance to confusion to something more jagged. Panic trying to wear a poker face. Her voice cracked through the glass. Not words, just volume. This is ridiculous. Based on what? No one looked at her. Or maybe no one wanted to look. We'd all heard her bark before. But this was different. This wasn't performance. This was real. I turned back to my screen, pretending to read through a data report I'd already cleaned last week. I didn't want to get pulled into anything. Didn't want her to spot me looking and make me the next excuse. But my eyes kept flicking toward one place. Emma's desk. Empty. No bag. No coffee cup. No neatly arranged notes or absurdly organized file folders. No Emma. Her name tag was gone too. It was like she'd never been there. I stood up and pretended to stretch, just to get a better look. A couple of junior devs near the kitchenette were whispering. One of them, Jared, I think, was saying something like, "She didn't even give notice, just dipped. Heard she was on some kind of evaluation team, like corporate espionage or something." The other snorted. "Bullshit. She was just a transfer." Then why'd HR come for Rachel 5 minutes after she left? I sat back down slowly, heart in my throat. The pieces hadn't connected yet. But they were there, floating, circling. Emma's precise questions. The way she tracked approval chains. Her poise, her timing. The way Rachel never quite knew how to handle her. That hallway moment when she said, "She's afraid of being exposed." And last night, "Tomorrow she'll know." This was tomorrow. I stared at my screen, trying to focus, trying not to hope too hard. I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to believe that someone like Emma had actually come in and shifted the plates beneath us. But Rachel's voice broke through the glass again. Sharper now. "Who the hell approved this? I want to talk to compliance. Legal. I want a statement from..." The HR woman said something too quiet to hear. Rachel fell silent. I looked down at my hands. They weren't shaking. But something in me was waking up. By mid-morning. The memo hit like a depth charge. No preamble. No emojis. Just a flagged email from Internal Operations. Confidential with the subject line. Compliance audit. Internal leadership review initiated. Every monitor in the office lit up at once. For 5 solid minutes, the only sound was mouse clicks and sharp inhales as people read the memo. Twice. It was brief, vague, but damning. Effective immediately, a formal review of conduct and compliance protocols across multiple management teams has begun. This includes a top-down evaluation of departmental leadership, data governance practices, and HR reporting chains. All staff are expected to fully cooperate with ongoing investigations. Direct questions to the assigned oversight officer listed below. This is a confidential matter. No public discussion. Attached was a list of affected departments. Ours was at the top. Rachel's name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't have to be. Every eye in the room snapped to her office. Still closed, blinds now half-drawn like she was trying to block out the judgment leaking in through the glass. I barely had time to process before my inbox pinged again. This time from the senior VP's assistant. "Please come to 17B. Now." No explanation. My heart kicked once, then dropped into a slow, cold rhythm. I thought about deleting files, about pretending I had a dentist appointment, about walking straight out and never coming back. But my legs moved before my mind could finish panicking. 17B was one of the small boardrooms. No windows, just a long table and 2 chairs. When I walked in, the senior VP of Ops, Jonathan Crane, the kind of man who always looked like he was already disappointed in you, was sitting there alone. He gestured for me to sit. I did silently. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts. My printouts. HR emails. Compliance flags. Budget overviews I'd submitted months ago. Redlined reports. Screenshots of late-night Slack messages from Rachel. Even the original forecasting model I'd built and she'd claimed credit for. "These came to us through Emma's report," Crane said, tapping the folder once with 2 fingers. "She was impressed by your professionalism, especially under the circumstances." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. She documented everything, he continued. And you? You gave her what she needed to verify it. I stared at the stack of papers. Some of them were so old I'd forgotten the pain behind them. I'd sent those documents thinking no one would ever read them, thinking they were screams into the void. She asked us to ensure you were protected, Crane said, tone cool but not unkind. And given what we've found, that's not going to be a problem. I blinked hard. Is she gone? Crane didn't answer right away. He just leaned back and folded his hands. Let's just say her job here is done. Then he stood, collecting the folder. Rachel Simmons has been placed on immediate administrative leave. She will not return to this office pending the outcome of the review. If anyone asks you about this conversation, you didn't have one. He opened the door for me. As I stepped into the hallway, the silence in the office had changed. It wasn't the tense, careful quiet of people walking on eggshells. It was the heavy stillness of shock settling into the floorboards. Rachel's door was open. Her desk was empty. Her nameplate gone. I walked past slowly, not gloating, not smiling, but breathing. For the first time in years, I felt air in my lungs that didn't taste like survival.by Friday. No one was pretending anymore. The whispers turned into full-blown office folklore. Someone from finance said they'd heard it from someone in legal, who heard it from an admin who once dated a guy in Emma wasn't some junior analyst from corporate. She was the daughter of Victor Langston Capital, the firm that had injected $90 million into our company during the Series C round, effectively making her father the largest stakeholder in the building. It didn't feel real at first. I sat at my desk staring at my inbox, watching the company-wide announcement roll in like it was just another calendar update. Subject: Staff Update, Emma Langston. Please join us in thanking Emma Langston for her recent internal audit work on behalf of Langston Capital. Her detailed report on operational culture and leadership dynamics has been received and will be informing several upcoming changes at the executive level. We appreciate her insight, discretion, and commitment to excellence. No title, no farewell happy hour. Just a message that landed like a thunderclap dressed as a memo. Attached, behind a compliance login wall, was a heavily redacted summary of her findings. I read every word. She didn't pull punches. The report outlined a culture of performance masquerading as productivity, where charm was often valued over competence, and individual contributors with critical skills were repeatedly deprioritized in favor of optics. There was a section titled Leadership, Conduct, Departmental Failures, and Rachel's name was mentioned in bold. Twice. Once for retaliation. Once for ethical violations related to data misrepresentation. I don't know what happened to her after that. No one said it out loud, but her corporate login vanished. Her calendar entries disappeared. The Velvet Axe had finally cut herself out of the picture. I kept waiting for someone to come over, for someone from HR or legal to say I'd need to sign something, that I'd be reassigned or quietly phased out now that Emma was gone. But instead, my boss, well, my new boss, a senior director I barely knew, walked over holding a crisp manila folder. Evelyn, he said, you've been promoted. Effective immediately, you'll be stepping into a senior analyst role with oversight duties. Direct report to me. Your work speaks for itself. So did Emma's report. I opened the folder with shaky fingers. New title. New salary. Oversight of 3 direct reports. My own office modest but with a window. No applause. No gold watch. Just quiet validation. Signed in black ink. Later that afternoon, I found Emma's desk completely cleared out. Just one thing left behind. A sticky note taped to the underside of her monitor stand. Faint ink, but unmistakable. Don't let them make you quiet again. I sat in my new office as the sun dipped behind the skyline, a low orange glow washing over my desk. For the first time in a long time, I didn't have to pretend to be small. Didn't have to shrink to make someone else feel taller. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't fought. I just endured. And someone finally listened. The first morning in my new office, I came in early, before the caffeine crowd had claimed the break room, before Slack pinged to life, before anyone could interrupt the silence I'd earned. The space was small, but it was mine. One desk, one chair, plant I hadn't named yet. A single window that looked out across the courtyard, where people came to take phone calls they didn't want overheard. I unpacked slowly. Not like before, when I used to shove my things into drawers like I didn't know how long I'd be allowed to keep them there. This time, I took my time. I wiped the desk, aligned the keyboard, placed a photo of my sister and I from a road trip 10 years ago on the corner where the light would hit it. The office smelled like fresh paint and a little bit of promise. I just opened a spreadsheet when there was a soft knock on the frame. I looked up. Emma stood there, no badge, no messenger bag, no coffee cup with a cheeky quote. She wore a slate-gray blazer, hair pulled back in a bun that looked like it could survive a board meeting and a hurricane. Her heels barely made a sound as she stepped inside. "You moved in," she said. I smiled. "They said the previous occupant didn't need it anymore." Emma glanced at the desk. "Clean surface. I like it. I keep things simple," I said. She nodded. "Always did." There was a moment of quiet, comfortable like a book you didn't want to end. She walked over to the window, looked out across the courtyard. I joined her. Below us, 2 HR reps were flanking Rachel. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't crying. Just walking, tight-lipped, face pale, sunglasses already on. Her ID badge dangled uselessly from her hand. No one was filming. No one clapped. But the air shifted, like the office itself had exhaled something it had been holding in for far too long. Emma didn't smirk. She didn't gloat. She just watched. Then, without looking away, she said, "Told you she'd know." I didn't say anything. Didn't have to. We stood there a moment longer, both looking out the same pane of glass, toward different futures. Eventually, she turned to go. "You've got work to do," she said softly, and she was gone. I sat back down, opened my laptop. The spreadsheet blinked at me. So did the calendar invite from the product team, now asking for my input. I started typing, not hesitantly, confidently, efficiently, productive like they never let me be. The office outside moved on. Phones rang, emails stacked, but my world felt still for a moment longer. And in that quiet, I heard her words again. "You've done enough." My final thought, simple, steady, clear. She said I didn't belong. Funny thing is, Emma always knew exactly where I did.